Okay, let's start our review for the Economics Unit 1 exam. If you plan on retesting, you do have to watch this video and complete the Edpuzzle questions as you go. We will look at 4 questions. You will have 4 open-ended questions at the end of this to take in aware. So we're going to go over 4 different standards, 4 different concepts that you'll have to review and then prove that you understand it before you can take your test. So the first one we're going to look at is 1A. 1A asks for the student to explain why scarcity and choice are basic problems faced by society. So right here it is. I can explain. You have to be able to explain why scarcity and choice are basic problems faced by society. So there are 3 very important terms that you need to know for this standard and understand them. The first one is scarcity. Scarcity is limited amounts of goods and services are available to meet unlimited wants. You also need to know choice, and choice is what someone must make when faced with 2 or more alternative uses of a resource. Your third term is opportunity cost, which is the next best alternative use of money, time, or resources. So let's look at those 3 terms and how they tie to explaining how scarcity and choice are basic problems faced by society. So we live in a world of scarcity. People want and need a variety of goods and services. It implies that human wants are unlimited, but the means to fulfill them are limited. At any one time, only a limited amount of goods and services can be produced. So basically, this is saying that we have unlimited wants, but we have limited goods and services that can be produced at any given time. So this means that we do have to make a choice on what it is that we produce and what we buy. So since we live in a world of scarcity, a society can produce only a small portion of goods and services that its peoples want. Therefore, scarcity of resources give rise to a fundamental economic problem of choice. As a society cannot produce enough goods and services to satisfy all the wants of its people, it has to make choices. So a decision to produce one good requires a decision to produce less of some other good. So choice involves sacrifice. Thus, every society is faced with the basic problem of deciding what it is willing to sacrifice to produce the goods it wants the most. For instance, the more roads a country decides to construct, the fewer resources there will be to build schools. So the problem of choice arises when there are alternative ways of producing other goods. So the sacrifice of the alternative, the school buildings, in the production of good roads is called the opportunity cost. So here you need to understand that we do have a limited amounts of goods and services that we can produce, even though we have a society that wants unlimited, we have unlimited wants. So therefore, we have to choose what we're going to produce and what we are going to want or go out and buy and sell. And after we make that choice, the opportunity cost is the next best alternative to use for the time, money, or resources of producing those goods. So for our next standard that you will be tested on or retested on, it is 1B, and it says, I can describe how societies answer the basic economic question, what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. So knowing that we have limited goods and services that we can produce, we do, as a society, have 3 economic questions that have to be answered. So the first question is, what are we going to produce? This is, what are you going to make with scarce resources, now that we know that we have scarce resources? A society cannot produce everything its people want, so we must decide what to produce. So are we going to produce a bunch of cars? Are we going to produce a bunch of cell phones? Are we going to produce and build roads and schools? So what are we going to produce? The second question is, how are we going to produce it? So how much of each resource will be used? Will it be labor intensive? Meaning, are we going to have cheap labor that's going to produce these goods? Or are they capital intensive? Do we have a lot of money? Do we have a lot of technology that's going to help us build these products or these resources? The third question is, for whom to produce? Who's going to get these products, and how is that going to be decided? Is the government going to decide who gets the products? Does the market with supply and demand decide who's going to get the products? Understanding these three questions, you should be able to describe how societies answer them. So knowing what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce are the economic questions that have to be answered in any society, any country. So after you answer the three basic economic questions of what to produce, how to produce it, and who to produce it for, then we move on to the next standard, the next question. How can you describe economic factors of production? Or you're going to be able to describe economic factors of production. The economic factors of production are land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So, under these terms, the land, when we're talking about producing goods and producing services, the land is all the natural resources. So, all the things within our country that helps us are what we're going to have to use in order to make the things that we need to make. The labor is any human effort, physical or mental, that goes into producing goods or services. The capital is man-made goods used in production and also money used to purchase those resources. So capital can be the money or it can be the machines which create it. So like if we have a sewing machine that creates jeans, the capital is the sewing machine and the product is the jeans. And then the land, the labor, and the capital, you have the entrepreneurship. And the entrepreneurship is basically somebody that combines all three of these factors of production to create a new or a different product. So anytime that you're going to open up a business or you're going to start a company, you have to think about what's going to fall under land, what's going to fall under labor, and what's going to fall under capital before you're able to start that business. So if you were to start a restaurant, you have to think about the factors of production of land, factors of production of labor, and the factors of production for capital. Okay, the last standard that you are going to be retested on is going to be 7A, which is I can interpret the role of resource owners and firms in a circular flow model of the economy and provide real-world examples to illustrate elements of the model. So here, circular flow model is a diagram that shows exchange taken in a free market. So y'all did an activity where you had to basically recreate the diagram of how the money flowed back and forth in the economy. So this shows how money moves through society. Money flows from producers to workers as wages and flows back to producers as payments for products. So the households are your resource owners, and the firms are going to be your businesses that produce a good or service. So the households provide the factor of production, the labor, the land, and the capital to firms. Firms are the businesses through the markets for factors of production. The firms will then use these factors of production to produce goods and services to be sold in the markets for goods and services. The households will then buy these goods and services from the firms to the market for goods and services. So basically, the households are buying from the companies. The companies they are taking the workers and paying the workers their wages so that way they can go out and buy it. So basically this is money, income, wages go to the household. So the factory hires somebody, the factor market, households sell, firms buy, they pay their workers wages. And so then our wages come here and they go out and they buy things, right? And then there's a revenue to the businesses because they're making money off the things that they are selling. And so you can see the green one here shows how the money is going back and forth, right? And then here you can see where goods and services are going into the household. The households, you got your labor, land, and capital because they're giving back to the businesses. And then from the businesses, the factors of production go back down and so forth. So firm pays the wages, rent, and profit to the households for the supply of the factors of production in the market. Households will use their income to spend on goods and services supplied by the firms in the markets for goods and services. And then households spend money on these goods and services. Firms will earn a revenue which can then be reinvested to obtain more factors of production. So it's this this cycle of how the economy keeps going because people keep making, people keep producing, people keep earning a wage, and then they're going out and buying Products. The economy can be thought of as two cycles moving in opposite directions. In one direction, we see goods and services flowing from individuals to businesses and back again. And this represents the idea as laborers, we go to work to make things or provide services that people want. In the opposite direction, we see money flowing through businesses, households, and back again. And this represents the income we generate from work we do, which we use to pay for the things we want. When we buy things, we pay money for them. When we go to work, we make things in exchange for money. So understanding the circular flow model and how people are employed, they make wages, they can go out and buy goods, then those goods and what they purchase, the money goes back in as revenue to the businesses so they can produce more goods. So this keeps the economy going. You should be able to interpret the role that households have and businesses have in the circular flow model.